We are in the season, what we call ordinary time, where this cycle called the cycle of light, with the preparation of Advent, the celebration of Christmas, and the Sundays after Epiphanies, the manifestation of what we prepared for 4 weeks and celebrated for 12 days. Now we see and should see the effects of Christmas in our lives. Because Epiphany, we have said, is manifestation. But as one priest mentioned, he said, Epiphany is really intense appearance. There is a certain intensity, masinsinang pagpapahayag, which God has now brought us to a point to reflect and show forth really the true life of what we have been given. Some time ago, I was coming from a trip from another land, from a foreign land. And when you come, and I'm not sure about this time, no, because I haven't traveled for a while, there is in the immigration department a line for Filipinos and a line for non-Filipinos. So of course, I stayed in the line for Filipinos, and ahead of me was this Chinese-looking man. He was kind of fidgety as we were coming closer and closer to the immigration booth. And finally, it was his turn. I was behind the yellow line, but I could hear the conversation that was taking place. And the immigration officer said, "Are you really Filipino?" And he said, yes, Filipino." "Sige nga," sabi ng immigration, "Mag-Tagalog ka." And he could not speak. He could not utter a word. There are certain traits that even though in paper shows you who you are, that is of no essence if it is not demonstrated in the life. If I was there, I would ask him, "Sige nga, kantahin mo yung pambansang awit?" O kaya naman, sino ang unang presidente ng Pilipinas? Because a Filipino should be able to understand the traits and the mores and the norms. In the same light, in our spiritual life as God's people, we may be baptized with the title Christian, Catholic, Protestant, Evangelical, Charismatic, Episcopal. We may be attending church. But these things and these actions will only be proven when we live it out and manifest it in our lives. Because the reality of Christianity is always incarnational. The Word will become flesh and dwelt among us. Mary said, "Be it done to me according to your word." And this is what happened that made the Word become flesh. It became a reality in the physical realm. Today we celebrate the feast of the presentation of our Lord Jesus Christ. Candlemas, the feast where Mary and Joseph brings the child Jesus 40 days after his birth to the temple as to be able to fulfill the law of Moses, which said that on the 40th day, 40 days a woman would be unclean, and on the 40th day she has to begin to be pure now, and then she has to offer the child in the temple. But what really is the significance of this feast in our lives as Christians? What is the connection of all of these that we can now begin to demonstrate what God has done for us? In our gospel today, Jesus said that you will know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Free for what? Free to do what? Because freedom without a purpose or an essence or a meaning is really nothing. Today, from the beginning of maybe about 200 years ago, when the world, the political world, was clamoring for freedom, 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 man was trying to establish his own definition of freedom. But freedom, I believe, is not necessarily doing what you want to do. Freedom is doing what you were made to do. You were created to manifest. You were created to demonstrate the life of God. You are made to be able to be seen by the world as the very living gospel, living epistle, as Paul says in his letter, a living epistle being written in your heart, the life and the gospel of Christ. And so the call for us today, as we look at the feast of the presentation, like Christ, is a call for consecration. To consecrate our lives, to separate ourselves. Like one person that I was with in a celebration of Christians, pastors, priests. And in that celebration, it was really fun. It was just celebration. There were other people there. And there was a lot of hard drinks. There was a lot of smoking. There was a lot of just even green jokes. And this person was asking, Pastor, I wasn't a priest then yet. Ano pa ba ang pinagkaiba natin kung ganyan din lang tayo? It just caught my attention to realize that salvation and freedom is supposed to be manifesting and being free to do what God has made you. What God has intended from the beginning. That we can be like God. There is no one, like what Hannah said, like our God. Neither is there any rock like Him. Because He alone is God. And we now manifest that holiness, that consecrated life, separating ourselves and making ourselves different from the world. As Paul said, Jesus said in John 17:17, sanctify them with your truth. Your word is truth. Sanctify means separate them. Gawin mo silang kakaiba. Hindi sila part of the same as the world. We are now made to go up the mountain with Jesus and become not the crowd downstairs, but the disciples listening as He sits down and we hear His word. It is a time of God's people to begin to be roused and to realize freedom is not so much for me and about me, but it is about doing and being free to do what God made you to do. What has God created us to become? What has God set us and destined us to be? We go back. It's the truth. Your word is truth, Jesus said. It's the truth that will set us free. And we have many times just set aside and marginalized scriptures because we are so consumed with many things in the world, thinking that this is that which will bring us hope and life. But there is an identity that calls every Christian today to see what is the effect of Christmas in your life. What is the effect of that? Was it just queso de bola and jamon and all of these nice food that you have taken and partaken of? The gifts that have passed away already? Is Christmas a reality today through the life that we live? Are you a Filipino? Then speak Filipino. Are you a Christian? Then walk in the freedom to do what you were made to do. Created to manifest.